Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime, here with my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review on Nick, the show on Nick. And I'm going to be reviewing 125, 126, Showdown Part 1 and 2, the season finale for Season 1. So, I'll get into some general thoughts here. Overall, it was a good finale. The two episodes were very good. It wasn't the best season finale I've ever seen of a show because I did feel like this whole plot didn't have that good of a build up as I've talked about before. There was just really it was the build up to this was done very poorly, I think, over the past few episodes. In that it kind of left it for the start of this episode to do a lot of the setup to create the drama. And to be fair, there was some drama in this episode. The stuff with Splinter, Shredder, and April was actually really well done, and are probably my favourite parts of the finale. But the stuff with the Krang and the Turtles, the main plot of the episode, basically, I felt was a bit of a letdown just because it didn't quite have the drama I expected from a finale. They set it up as the Krang invasion of Earth, and while it was, I just didn't feel the drama behind it. So the way it was resolved, I think just didn't quite have me feeling like as pumped as I should have been. But I'll still maintain that it was a very good finale. It is just the season 1 finale, and shows like this always get better as they go along, and I think it's a good setup for season 2 onwards. But let me get into some specifics about the episode. My favourite stuff about the episode basically involves Splinter, I think. And at the start of the episode, you had April confronting Splinter when the turtles go out, and he decides to just stick behind and doesn't go with them. And she kind of just nicely asks him, why aren't you going with them? And he's like, why should I? And stuff like this. And she really kind of makes it clear that they're risking their lives. Why don't you do the same? They could use you. You're like the best, basically, that we have here. And from there, he kind of snapped at her, and he gets really angry about it. Then, and you really get the sense that he is a little bit afraid of what he will encounter, I suppose, if he fights the Shredder. And I really like that. And then what really gets to him is when April leaves with her father, obviously led into a trap, but she leaves and says, like, where are you going? It's like, I'm going because, unlike you, I can't just sit here and wait, something along those lines. And that's what kind of echoes through his mind when he eventually decides to go and confront Shredder. So I really did love that throughout the episode, that there was that really good scene that you really felt the kind of emotion in it, and it was done well. And then as you go on, you had Splinter going to Shredder's lair, and what I love here was the way Dog Pound was the one narrating, kind of setting up this fight, that he recapped you on the history between Oroku Saki and Amado Yoshi, and that, the big important thing was that Splinter is the equal to Shredder in terms of combat, but doesn't have the stomach to finish the fight. And I think that's the big thing here, that he knew that if he ever confronted Shredder, he may not have had the stomach to finish the fight. And that's what's most interesting to me here. And then you see how skilled he is when he just takes out all the Foot Clan. Like, the 4 turtles together could probably do the same, but just him on his own doing it was really impressive. And then more impressive than that, facing Fishface and Dog Pound alone and just absolutely owning them to set up the fight with Shredder then, which was the stuff with Shredder and Splinter was drama done well in the finale. I didn't feel the rest of the episode got the drama that good, but they did it perfectly, I think, for the Shredder Splinter conflict, because they set it up as these are the 2 big guys. These have the personal issues behind it. Shredder ruins Splinter's family and stuff like that, and then Shredder feels jealous about Splinter supposedly stealing the wife. And Shredder's goading Splinter into kind of getting angry, using the fact what happened to his family, and then you also get the reveal. Shredder gets the reveal that Splinter, his biggest enemy, isn't actually now a mutated rat. And that was interesting in that, like, you kind of did wonder, does he know? Did he know? Did he ever find out? But no, this is the first time he finds out, and you instantly see him become a bit overconfident. If it was just Hamato Yoshi in human form, he would have at some stage respected him. But the fact that he didn't and just saw him as a rat, I think, led to even more personal stuff in this fight because, as we see what happens, the rat form actually plays a really interesting role in the fight. But and obviously, as this happened as well, Shredder gave the April to the Krang as well. But going back in the episode to what happens with April, obviously she had the nice scene with Splinter, but then with her father, she's then captured by Karai. You get a nice moment where she knees Karai in the gut, which was really well done, and you also had the kind of thing of just an Avatar reference here. It's like outside of the opening two-parter where I really heavily compared the voice. Obviously, Mae Whitman does voices Katara in Avatar and also April here. Outside of those opening two episodes, I haven't really compared it that much. But when she said something that was so similar to one of Katara's best lines, like the whole line from The Painted Lady, I will never ever turn my back on people who need me. And she said something really similar to Splinter here, I think it was, I won't just sit here idly and not do anything to help and stuff like that. I was just like, Katara, you're in the episode, wow. That was the kind of first time since the opening two-parter that I've actually kind of had that reaction, I think. So that was good. And obviously she's captured and brought to the Krang. And for the most part we don't get anything with it until the second part of the finale, but going to the turtles, we see them arming up for the attack, which was a really nice scene to show that this is a big thing. And this is the one time where I felt they got the drama right with the turtle stuff, that they set it up as that more than any other time they planned for this. You had the personalities all come out in the way they armed up. Raph just got more and more weapons, and he was like looking after Spike as well. Mikey was just messing around, he's a bit confident and stuff like that. He doesn't really do much. And then Leo and Donnie are planning the mission because obviously Leo's the leader and Donnie's the planner and stuff like that. So that was really nice. But then you get Leonardo character development when he sees space heroes and also gets talked to by Splinter. Basically, the space heroes suggests to Leo, as it has done in a lot of episodes, every time it's appeared in, it's foreshadowed a plot point. In this case, that Captain Ryan went down with his ship in a time of great drama, and that Leo kind of thinks that if something happens here, he'll have to do the same. And then Splinter basically says the same thing to him as well, that you have to succeed no matter the cost to any person, and because he's the leader, it applies to him even more. And that was interesting to me because I felt they almost foreshadowed it too much. They were not subtle at all with this. And so every time Leo was involved in a fight, and every time if the focus was on Leo, I was expecting him to do something like this. Expecting him to order the others out and then do something. And so because it happens twice in the finale, I think it was actually some poor writing to actually have that happen twice after double the setup sort of thing. But then the plan is interesting. They send the Shellraiser in as a kind of Trojan horse to distract the Krang forces on the ground of the TCRI building. Then they glide in using some stuff that Donnie's created. And they see Trog there, the big lava golem guy guarding the portal. And they plan to use this matter gun or something like that Donnie made to destroy the portal, and that's the mission basically. But we see that it doesn't quite go right. There's a shield there, Donnie has to take it down while Leo fights Trog with the gun. It's all wasted, which leads to the first Leo sacrifice thing. Leo decides that, okay, I'm going for the power cell to blow this place up, and there's not quite the same level of reaction. They're still kind of like looking back at him, like as he kind of goes to do this, he does it on his own. And you do have the sacrifice thing as he just barely escapes as the explosion goes off, but he doesn't have his glider with him and he's falling to his death until Raph saves him. So there's the first one. They kind of teased it. It wasn't quite the sacrifice you expected, but it was something like that. and I was interesting. I thought they were going to do something more dramatic there, but it worked. Um, then the only other thing really about this episode would be that the Krang's plan. You see the Krang setting up for their plan. You see them all prepared. They talk to Krang Prime. The plan is to use the Technodrome and stuff like that to invade Earth. And the problem here was that because of the way they've set this up throughout the season, I've really struggled to see the Krang as that big of a threat. That the turtles are going to be in any way in danger around these guys. And just the way that they go about doing the invasion, it just didn't quite have the drama that it should have had. I'll talk about this more going into the next episode, but it was just odd the way they did it. I didn't quite feel that like this was crazy stuff going down, season finale material, and that they needed more setup to show that the Krang were cruel and stuff like that. And they haven't really. They really shown them to be just kind of guys who just get beaten down every single time. But yep, that's the end of the first episode. So going into the next one, we start off with some the Shredder stuff, Splinter, and we see that it was Shredder's jealousy that led to the betrayal there and led to Splinter losing his daughter and wife. And then we see Shredder start to use tricks as the fight begins to his advantage. He makes the floor drop, and he kind of is using the fact that he knows the area better than Splinter to kind of give himself an advantage in the fight. And it's fairly even until Shredder decides to reveal that, you stole, basically in his opinion, he stole the wife from him, but then he says that, I stole your daughter. So there's the reveal we've all been waiting for, that Karai is actually Miwa. I think that's how you pronounce it. And that is Splinter's daughter, so that makes Karai Splinter's daughter. And, it was obvious, I wasn't surprised by it. I suppose I was just waiting for the scene to happen where he finds out or Shredder reveals it to see how it happened. So I liked it that Shredder basically used it to give himself an advantage in in the fight, to kind of lower Splinter's defenses by giving him this kind of emotional thing to deal with. And then, as it goes on, Shredder goes in for the kill as kind of Splinter's beginning to deal with this. And when he starts to kind of make his fight back, he bites the blade off using the rat form, and then it's like using the rat agility to kind of beat Shredder. Then he goes in for the final blow, and Karai arrives in to save her father, who she thinks is her father, Shredder. So they're in this position where you see then, from what Shredder says to Karai, that she is so entrenched in knowing that, in the lies basically that Shredder's told her, that nothing Splinter says in this situation is going to convince her otherwise. And it was this really emotional moment because the music during this end part of the final was great. And it was one of the one times I think the whole series that they've actually used music in a dramatic way well. And so it all led up to this moment, to the big kind of like, Karai's there. She has a little fight with her real father, who, if he reveals it, she's just going to not believe it. So he just doesn't say anything and leaves. And it was just this moment where he couldn't say anything, and you get why he left. And the laugh from Shredder was perfect because he just has emotionally manipulated the situation. You expect him to be the brute force guy, but what really wins him the day is that he's stolen Splinter's daughter and has convinced her that he's her father, not Splinter. And that was interesting, and so you understood why he left, and that was just really well done. I liked it. It's probably some of my favourite parts of the finale. With the turtles, we see them land after they found the Technodrome, which, as much as they've stopped it, the portal opening, the Technodrome has still arrived. They go down to find Splinter. This is where they meet Kirby. They find out he's been brainwashed and stuff like that. And then they decide to head to the Technodrome to take it out. And this is all the stuff where nothing incredibly interesting is happening. It's just, this is the plan that we have to do now. And then, the turtles go in after some fights. They save April. And Donnie is April's hero. Um, I'll talk about the kind of Krang Prime attack and stuff like that now. So Krang Prime attacks using the huge robot body that she has, and then we get the big sacrifice. Leo uses Mikey's nunchuck chain thing to hold Krang Prime back to let the others escape. And you see that Raph is the one that's most shocked by this, the one who's been most against Leo's leadership, finally sees kind of Leo just do the ultimate leader thing, this kind of sacrifice. As they leave an escape pod, Leo's left on the ship, they land safely in the ocean, and they think everything's okay, until the Technodrome crashes into the ocean too, and they think that Leo's dead. And then all the drama is just ruined by the Leo comeback way too early. And this is where I think this part of the episode failed, because the scene was so short. The thing crashes, and literally 10 seconds later, Leo's back. You have Raph saying, if I wouldn't have been so mean to him and stuff like that, and then immediately he's back. As much as it was like, yay, you teased Leo's death, it was just like, did you really think Leonardo was going to die at this point? And that's why I really struggled with this part of the episode and the turtle stuff, because more than like almost any show I've ever seen, that like these turtles seem to have so much kind of plot armor going on, and I don't really use that much. The idea of like plot armor and stuff like that, the main characters are never in any danger. But with the turtles in this case, that's pretty valid, and I didn't really fear for their safety at any point in the series. I felt the fight with Krang Prime wasn't really that good, because because there was very little setup for Krang Prime, and then there wasn't really much of a fight. It was more of a chase scene and then holding this thing back. It was just left me kind of feeling that, like, why is Leo in so much danger here? You know, why did they really think he was going to die when this thing, which wasn't that badly damaged when it entered the ocean, why did they think he was going to die when more than likely he was just knocked around in the middle of the ship and was probably allowed a chance to escape? I just felt it wasn't executed that well. It was set up well with the whole stuff of like Leo needing to sacrifice himself, you know, early on, but I didn't really kind of understand why they were so worried, because it didn't seem like a situation that dangerous, because they were in a similar situation in an escape pod that crashed into the water, and then this bigger thing, which would arguably have more protection entering the water, crashing slower and stuff like this. Why was Leo in so much danger? It was just these similar situations that didn't seem to match up, and so I didn't really like the scene that much. I liked the fact that Leo did the sacrifice and that he has really become the leader. I liked the idea that Raph has a lot more respect for him now, and you see his true feelings come out when he thinks Leo's dead, but it just, the background to it just wasn't that good, I don't think. But what else is there? Let's see. The only other thing I think is left is we see the Technodrome abducting humans, and that's their whole plan. It's got lots of weaponry, and it's the big kind of ending to the series. And like they did a good job of, I suppose, presenting that this was panic all over the place with the Carlos Chiang O'Brien Gambay news broadcast. But then we go to the April and Krang Prime scenes, which I think is pretty much the last thing I need to talk about. I didn't like the Krang Prime voice because it was a bit overly modulated. You had to really focus in on what she was saying to really get all the words she was saying, because it was just that extra, it was just that little bit too modulated that you couldn't quite get everything. I think it's fine after you listen to it a few times, but like if you were watching this live, and kind of were in a room that had a little bit of noise, I think you'd struggle to really hear what you were saying. But then we get the explanation for why April's important to the Krang, and this is like her mental energy is uniquely attuned to this universe, and they're going to use that to somehow form Earth into a place where the Krang can live. and that then they start to experiment on her, and apparently they're channeling her powers into Krang Prime, and it's going to cyber or something like that, form Earth or something like that. It was just this explanation that just didn't explain anything. It felt like jargon without really explaining it, because there's no way you can really get what exactly her power is just from what's been established so far. And then here, when they have a chance to explain it, they don't really explain it. Like, mental energy uniquely attuned to this universe. What exactly does that mean? And why does that ability allow the Krang to change Earth to be more friendly to Krang? It was just this leap in logic that I didn't quite get and felt I needed an explanation. Like, the biggest example I can give is that, look at the end of The Legend of Korra. They have the whole bloodbending thing with a mom, and they don't really ever explain it. Like, the creators have explained it since, but the show doesn't ever explain to you how he does it. But because they've established enough about the specifics behind bending and blood bending and stuff like that, you can sort of tease out what exactly it's about and what exactly Amon's doing. In this case, they've left it so vague, and then this explanation, that you just don't get what the power is, why she's so important, after so much setup of her being mentioned as being important. And I just didn't get it. I hope it comes back. I really do, because I love the fact that they've made April an important character in this series. And I love the fact that they made the whole thing of that she's really important to the Krang plan. But I think it was important for us to know why. And then to just give this answer that I think a lot of people have been pretty annoyed with the explanation, that, like, the number of people on Tumblr I saw, like, live blogging this episode, that kind of come the end of it were like, wait, did they explain why April was so important? And then the people replying with this doesn't really give them any, like, resolution to that. So it was a disappointing kind of end to that plot, if it is the end of the plot. So I think that's the end, apart from obviously the very end. They obviously return home. Splinter doesn't tell anyone what happened. He said it's something to be revealed another day. I assume that this is going to be the big plot thread going into season 2. And I like that it's set up going into season 2, this thing. And then they have the dance party. And I do love the fact that they have a dance party to end it, because this is the sort of show where that works. Like, if they did it with Korra, a dance party would be so out of place. But this show, I think it works really well that they end it with a dance party. And if they do it for every season, I think that's going to be a really cool thing to look forward to. But yeah, that's the end of the episodes. And, I have my negatives about the episodes, but as a whole, this was a good finale overall. It's just, it does, for me, just show that this is a season 1 show. This is a show currently in its season 1, and it's not like a show like Korra, where it's already had Avatar: The Last Airbender before it. This is the first thing in this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Nick universe. And so it shows that the writing hasn't quite got to the point where I think it could be yet. I think season 2 will improve upon that. It has a few things set up from this still to be resolved. Like, the whole neutralizer thing wasn't brought up at all in the finale. And I don't think I can really complain about the finale for doing that, because I think that is set up for something bigger. That there probably is something more to do with the Krang, who that's the one thing I forgot to mention, that they do then cut to under the water. The Technodrome is still active, so the Krang are still a threat. And I do hope that going into the next season, that they do amp up the drama a bit, that they do make it emotional about the Splinter Karai thing, and when I assume they will inevitably reveal the truth to Karai, that it's done well, and like how that impacts like Leo finding out that Karai is effectively his sister and stuff like that. And then finding out maybe more about April, why exactly she's important. Why is she the way she is, I suppose, is the main thing. What's April's origins, really? Does she have this ability? Is it some form of mutation? Some stuff like that. And then we know like there's other characters being introduced. We have the neutralizer still to be explored. We have effectively every mutant created in the series still to be explored going to season 2. So they have a lot of stuff set up, and in many ways I think that's the best way to look at season 1, as set up for the whole series, which we know is going to get 3 seasons of 26 episodes. And this one is in a way lowered itself down in quality to set up higher quality next seasons. So that's all I really have to say. Again, I think a lot of people, when they do reviews and stuff like this, get lost in negatives and overall view the episode as negatives. But I have like 2 or 3 negatives about the finale, but I have so many other positives that overall I think this finale is definitely a positive. This is a good show on Nick, and probably the second, maybe third best show out there right now. I do think Korra is the best currently. Transformers Prime I think is a bit better than Turtles, and then Turtles is still really high quality. And that is good praise, I think, for Nickelodeon, that they have 2 of the best shows out right now. And Turtles, I think, will really be done well, I think, by the fact that season 2 is starting next month along with Korra. So Nickelodeon are going to have this amazing, I assume, Saturday morning block of like an hour where that probably Turtles first and then Korra. That's going to be an amazing kind of hour of cartoons. So, yep, that's all I have to say about this review. Thanks for watching, and bye.